Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I didn't forget about you. I know it's later in the day, but time just got away from me today. So I'm back again with another entry for our Simple Abundance here. We're following along in Sarah Ban Beathnach's book, Simple Abundance. And today's entry, it's August 21st, 2020. It ties in with yesterday's entry, so if you haven't watched that video, I would say go watch that first, because this is kind of a continuing story in today's entry. So I'll see you after that one if you have to leave now and come back. Anyway, so yesterday we were talking about that moment in Sarah's life. She told us in a story about how divine intervention stepped in, and now she's a writer in Paris because she was accepted into this writing community and had a place to live and work on the rest of her play. And in today's entry, it's called Answered Prayers and Angels Unaware. And she goes into a little bit of history of the Shakespeare and Company place that she stayed. And I was thinking back, I didn't actually look today, but she does mention the Shakespeare and Company business, I guess, in the August Joyful Simplicities, because I remember they must have a catalog. I feel like that's what she was telling us, to order some books from there. So in any case, she's telling us more about Shakespeare and Company and about her time there. She spent 4 weeks and finished her play, and she called it her miracle month because it was like a light of fire like lit underneath her to get it done, and she felt so inspired. And she said that she just felt like, because other people were there and like she had the camaraderie and she was surrounded by books, and because she felt accepted as a writer in this community, that it made it more real for her, and so it gave her that extra oomph that she needed to just really make it happen. And just even in the name, answered prayers and angels unaware. We talked about how yesterday her prayer was answered. Like at the very last moment, when she had just totally given up hope and didn't even have a dime to pay for the candle at the cathedral. She does tell us that after she finished her screenplay, or it was a script for a play. I almost said screenplay, but that she did go back to Notre Dame and lit a candle and said thank you. And in order to get home, she sold her typewriter to someone else who was there at Shakespeare and Company. And she tells us in the story at the end about how she was walking away and like looking up in the window at him with the typewriter. And so it was almost like a pay it forward, right? I mean, obviously he paid for her typewriter, but I mean, as far as like her turning over, like handing over the keys to the next person to take on that role of being a writer in Paris. So we talked a bit about yesterday about, well, we didn't really talk about angels specifically, but when I shared my story about how I gave the money to the man on the street yesterday, and then just like in the story that Sarah was telling us about the gentleman that took her in and became the catalyst to having her stay at the Shakespeare and Company place and getting her to write her play, those are angels. Like, those are angels unaware, right? So just like I said yesterday, you never know when you may be a part of something and be an earth angel for someone. I bet that you can all think of experiences where you've encountered a situation or a person that you looked back on and you just thought, that was an angel. I mean, they were just there at the perfect time. I'm thinking about a family situation in the last year. There was an injury that happened on a ski slope over the winter, and it worked out okay, but it was a pretty dire situation. But the next person that came down the trail was a medic. I mean, he was just skiing for himself, but he took over the whole situation. He got the crew there. He calmed my family members that were there, and so it was like, that was such an angel. situation, that, you know, that the divine just put the coordinates in to get that person there at the exact time for when the need was there. So you could be that for someone else, or you can think of times where other people or unexplained people that might seem like they could be from the angelic realm were there to either stop you from doing something, maybe like holding you up and you didn't get in the, I don't mean like hold you at gunpoint, I mean like just hold you up for your time, and then you didn't get in the car and you missed an accident, or, you know, some sort of crazy thing like that where you didn't do something that might have led to a bad outcome, or maybe there was someone there prompting you to do something that ended up being like a moment in your life that changed everything. Let me know if you have anything to share. I'd love to read your comments on that. And I was looking back in Sarah's earlier edition of Simple Abundance. That's her Daybook of Comfort and Joy, written in the late 90s. And there's a couple of entries that she, you know, because these new entries about more about her life, where we talked about her at the Abbey, and then now these two Paris entries, they took the place of some of the other ones. And I just wanted to give a nod to the topics, to the ones that were taken out. So we did talk about in the August Joyful Simplicities about going to the library or a used bookstore or wherever you can get your hands on your favorite books from childhood. And Sarah had encouraged us to do that. And there is an entry about the, I didn't leave it. I didn't open it. Okay, sorry. It was the comfort found in good old books. So there's an entry about that. And if you haven't revisited some of your favorite childhood books, I hope you will. I told you in that August entry about how I, one summer, just got all my favorite little kids' books, like Frog and Toad are Friends, and Pickles the Fire Cat, and Paddington, and Blueberries for Sal, and Lyle the Crocodile, and Harry the Dirty Dog. Those are some of my favorites that are coming to my mind. I got this whole collection from the library. Oh, and there was Fred and Ted, Big Dog, Little Dog. That was a hard one to find. I had to go to 3 different libraries. And I couldn't actually find the exact classic version of the one that I had. I'm also forgetting Richard Scarry too. I mentioned him in another entry, and I had a Richard Scarry book, so I got one of those as well, with Lowly Worm and some of the famous classic characters from there. Oh, and Mike Mulligan's the steam shovel, Marianne. Forgetting the name of the exact name of the book. Mike Mulligan's Steam Shovel, maybe? Is that what it's called? Anyway, so I grabbed a whole bunch of my favorite ones from the library, and then I just went and sat on the lake that summer and just revisited all the fun little stories and pictures. And my books were pretty juvenile, but you may have other books, like I'm thinking of later on, that I loved the Laura Ingalls books, and then the C.S. Lewis books from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and all those. So maybe you might want to revisit some of those books when you were older, and just reading them now as an adult can be a different experience, but it takes you back to some earlier times in your life. So I wanted to mention that because Sarah was talking about how at Shakespeare and Company she was just surrounded by books. So I wonder if you're surrounded by books in your current place. Do you like to collect books and have them around? I used to have a pretty big bookshelf, but since I've moved a bunch of times, I've just consistently pared down. So now I just have probably a shelf or two. If I had them on a bookshelf, I actually keep them in a little cupboard. But I've been watching the news, and I keep seeing all the people that are coming in remotely, and they all have these really elaborate studies with tons of books behind them. They look very scholarly. And I wonder if you might have a library like that. That's making me think of Belle in Beauty and the Beast with the library at the castle. So that was one thing that wasn't included. And then also music as therapy. And we did talk a bit about music in another entry earlier in the year when we talked about the senses, right? And the last one was the eye of the beholder. And I just wanted to mention that because we've been talking so much about honing in on a craft and sharing your gifts with the world. And in most cases, those things could be really personal expressions from the heart. Remember we talked about how, wasn't it Saint Francis of Assisi who said that when you work with your hands, your heart, and your head, right? Those three, those are the combination of being an artist when the heart is included. So in this entry, the eye of the beholder from the old book, she brings up a good point that art can be experienced by everybody in a different way. Like you might look at something and think it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and I might be like, I can't believe you bought that, like, or vice versa, and we talked about with the music too, how people have different tastes in music as well. So the eye of the beholder, as far as like when you're thinking about getting your work out there, and you may have that inner critic, but you never know what's going to resonate with someone else. And when it's coming forth from your heart, then hopefully it will touch someone else's heart. And there's always mixed reaction to any sort of creative endeavor, right? Some people, it's like they either love it or they hate it, but that's what it is when you put yourself out there with these new things. So the eye of the beholder, I mean, really, ultimately, the eye of the beholder is really your eye. And if you feel like you're sharing it and you're happy with it, then that's really all that matters. Just like Sarah didn't feel like she was a writer, she really already was a writer, even though she hadn't published her play yet. But the gentleman there at the Shakespeare Company had said to her, a writer is someone who writes, not just talks about it. I read that in the other entry. And also, remember there was that quote, Sarah shares it again, remember, just write the truest sentence you know. It's the first sentence that's the hardest. So it's basically like, just take that first step, right? I hope that you're having some angelic experiences and perhaps having some answered prayers. And I hope you're having a nice evening, and I thank you for taking the time to watch. I will be back with you tomorrow. This is the one I've been looking forward to because I remember this well. It's called Spinning Straw into Gold. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I will see you guys then. Have a good night. Bye-bye.